Hey folks, Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist. Stick around for this video. I'll try to not make it too long, but I'm going to be going through several things that are relevant to what's going on with the coronavirus. The thing is this, it's getting very complicated pretty much everywhere in the world. No matter where you look, this is looking quite bad. First, I'd like to address some of the myths, some of the lies, some of the misinformation floating around. It's been said that you don't need to buy these because they don't work. At the same time, and I posted this in my Instagram. By the way, it's Fairfile308. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I try posting stuff over there as well. But I was commenting that it's funny how on one side they're telling you not to buy these, and in the same sentence, they're telling you that they need them for the healthcare workers. So which one is it? It doesn't work? Or, I mean, I would be okay if they said you don't need it as of right now. You know, that's more of an opinion. But saying that it doesn't work, it's an insult to our intelligence. It's considering people stupid that they don't know the truth. Truth is that these things do protect you. You could argue that in some parts, you know, in some states, in some cities where it's not already being spread, there's not that much of a need for it. You know, that I'm okay with. Now, telling people that it doesn't work, that is just not true. Buy these, by the way, if you don't have these. These are all things that are basic preparedness supplies. If you've been following the channel for some time, I've shown these. I have a pile of these, and I keep them in different kits and such. It is basic preparedness supplies. It's not just for pandemics. It's stuff that you need for volcanic ash, for dust, ash from fires. This has happened across the planet in different places, and when it happens, people just need these. That is an essential part of preparedness. When you do preparedness methodically, you address lots of these things. This is stuff I keep on mentioning it because I think it's a valuable resource. But my latest book, Street Survival Skills, when I talk here about the rules of three, the importance of fair, when I talk about the supplies that you need in your household, explaining why you need respirators, why you need all these things. Explaining why you need hygiene supplies, the gloves. All of these things are part of methodical, reasonable preparedness. And when you do that methodically, reasonably, you cover some of these things that for some people are unexpected. For people that do survival and preparedness methodically, professionally, this is not unexpected. This is so not unexpected that it's part of if you want to have a little bit of fun in the bathroom while, you know, get yourself 501 most devastating disasters. It's not a fun read, but again, when you do things seriously, when you're professional about the way you prepare and the advice that you put out there like I am, I take this very seriously. I do my research so as to provide you guys with good information. It's an interesting fact about the Spanish flu. You know, it wasn't so much a Spanish thing. The Spanish flu was because of the restrictions in the media were not as tight in Spain, so the news got out there more. When the flu started, it actually started in the United States, I believe it was in Arizona, but basically it's the Spanish flu, and Spain was not one of the most affected countries, but the Spanish flu basically killed 2 or 3% of the population. Between 50 and 100 million people back in the day, 1918, okay? And there's been a bunch of our pandemics, and this is just stuff that happens, all right? So let's not, because one of the other lies going out there is that the worst virus is fear, and the worst virus is, no, that's not a virus. You know, that's nonsense. Fear, no, you shouldn't have any fear. You shouldn't panic, you know. But those are not viruses. The actual virus is coronavirus. It's doing its thing. It's doing what viruses do. It's spreading and it's getting people sick. And a lot of people are, yes, dying. Now, another lie being said is, this is not as bad as, it's just like regular flu. No, it's not. It spreads a lot more easy. It spreads a lot more. It is a lot more contagious. And the numbers are showing that right away. the numbers of people. Right now in the United States, where there's over 100 infected, almost 10 dead, give or take, that's a serious number, and it's not being contained. In Spain, they're talking about containing it. It's beyond being contained at any point. In Italy, what is it, over 1,000 and something infected. Again, a lot of people dying as well. The only silver lining, if you want to look at it, is not going after kids. You know, that would be one of the saddest, worst parts. That would be, you know, pretty tragic. Especially a guy like myself. I'm a father. I have small children, so that would be tough. But at the same time, they're putting it out there in the media like, oh, it only kills those nasty old folks. Well, there's a lot of old people out there. There's a lot of old people with medical conditions out there. And for them, it is not looking good. For you, if you're watching this, if you are in that group, it is not looking good at all. If you're plus 60, plus 70, let alone plus 80, I think that for over 80 was over 10% chance of a fatality rate that it has. So it is complicated. Another lie, young kids don't get infected. That is not true. Young kids get infected just as well. Children get infected just like anyone else. The thing is, children apparently, and this is just apparently because this is just in a beginner state, you know, this is the initial state of the pandemic where we don't have a ton of information really. And what we're seeing is that not that they're not getting sick, they're getting the virus and they're spreading it, but they're not getting as seriously ill over it. They're not in many, and this goes for a lot of people as well. Yes, you could even say that most people deal with it like somewhat of a regular flu. Just have a few symptoms, they don't feel all that well, feeling a little bit more crappy, but it's hard to say exactly how much people have that. Compared to those that end up with a pneumonia in a very serious condition. Now, if we're going to be looking only at the fatality rates, those are terrible. Those are 10, 20 times worse than your average flu. Okay? Numbers don't lie. It is 10 to 20 times worse, 10 to 20 times more deadly than your average flu. That is a lot of dead people. I mean, there's really no way around this. It is what it is. I understand not spreading fear. I understand not going for the paranoia, but it is what it is. At this point, spreading like it is, and the amount of dead people that you have at such an early stage already. And one of the things I talked with David Jones, which we were fortunately had it in my channel very early on, just as soon as this started in China, I had him in my channel, and we talked for over an hour with David. Go back and watch that. David is very knowledgeable. One of the things that he was explaining was, yes, that these do work. Don't go for that bullshit that it doesn't. These, of course, work as well. This is what not a prepper, this is what a survivalist would have. Survivalists have gas masks. This is a thing that's not disposable. This is a thing, you can keep using it on and on. You have to go with the proper protocol. I don't want to go off-road here a lot, but it has to be washed properly. You have to put it on and take it off properly, and it's used with other gear as well. But this is the kind of stuff that makes sense to have from a survivalist, methodical preparedness point of view. Thing is, I was talking about what we said with David. David was explaining that these things last for 12 to 18 months, a year, year and a half. That is how long these things last. This is just getting started. It's not looking very good, unfortunately. So it's also a virus that mutates a lot. I think in the guy in Brazil, it changed like 3 times. It had like 3 different mutations. And that is very dangerous because it's a virus that's constantly adapting. Some people said it was a manufactured biological weapon in China. Whatever it is out there and it's doing what it's doing. And this is very helpful, looking at our pandemics, looking how these things have happened before, how it spread. Even with the H1N1, there was a lot of this going on. I remember the respirators getting very expensive. I remember the hand sanitizer running out. It was very expensive as well. These are all things that have happened, and expect this to happen in the United States as well. It is already happening. Lots of shelves are already empty. Now, I go online a lot. I like participating in the forums a lot. It's it's kind of one of the things I enjoy. I was just talking with someone, talking more on the business side of things, but I was explaining to this person that this is what I do. This is what I love doing. My wife says, you never stop. You go and go and go, and it's all day long, weekends until 2, 3 a.m. Yes, it is what I love doing. Now, when you love what you do, you kind of obsess with it, and you keep on learning about things, and that's part of it. What's part of that as well is participating in the discussion forums online and all that stuff. A lot of authors and experts, or whatever you want to call people that are into this, they don't do it. I enjoy doing it. Sometimes I get a little bit too involved or start screwing around a lot and just end up maybe wasting time or pissing people off. But you also learn, and I also do it because you end up learning and understanding how the grinds work on different people and different geographic locations across the world. And specifically in the United States, there's a lot of differences between the different states, and if someone is more rural or someone is more of living in a city and the kind of perspective they have, what I see is that there's a lot of people that are just not getting it. They don't understand how serious, how bad this thing is. They've seen a few empty shelves in New York or California or whatever crap it is in some bigger city, and they think, oh, I'm in the country. This is going to be getting you no matter where you are. This is a big deal. How bad it gets or not, it is still up in the air. But it is going to be bad. There's no way around. Sometimes you have to be honest with these things. You can't, the important thing is staying brave and being courageous and not. No, I mean, I look at it from my perspective. I'm not all that old, so I'm kind of in a good position. My wife as well, my kids. The age factor benefits us. All the precautions we've taken. I mean, we've used hand sanitizer every single day in my family for years before this. This is part of, this is who we are, right? My kids, before eating, my kids in school, they would wash their hands with hand sanitizer, and their classmates would, why are you washing your hands? That's not necessary. Yeah, it kind of is, And you go back to life experiences. I mean, we've gone through something like this. It was actually worse than this with the H1N1 in Argentina. In my kid's school, a kid died and a worker died. One of the workers in the kitchen died. And that was kind of scary. And they suspended classes and they sent you homework. I would put on my respirator. I didn't have a proper gas mask yet, but I would put on my respirator, take all the precautions, pick the homework because they weren't doing the online thing yet. At least there they didn't. And I would bring it back home and they would do their homework, and that was it for some time. And my kid, my oldest son, he got sick. He probably had H1N1. It was the worst flu I've ever seen in anyone, and he dealt with that pretty good, but it was very bad. It was very high fever. He could barely breathe at some point, and years later, actually quite recently in a recent blood test, they told us, at some point he had something very serious, a very big illness of some kind. Somehow they can tell that on certain blood tests, but it was probably that. And he made it, and that's all fine, and that's it. But a lot of people died back then. It was in Argentina with the socialist, crappy Kirchner government that is back there right now. But it was all very well hitting, and even today the numbers are not very accurate, at least in my estimation they are. But what is it that for anyone in the United States watching this and hearing me rant, what is it that you should know? What is it that you should be preparing for? It is serious. It is no joke. I think I made my point. Respirators are important. They prevent up to 80% transmission is stopped through the respiratory system if you're using this properly fitted to your face, let alone a proper gas mask. That is a big number. It's through the respiratory system, through those little droplets of saliva when people cough, sneeze. Also when people talk, they spit, and those droplets do come out. That is the main thing that's spreading this thing. There's been a lot of insisting a lot on washing your hands. That is big as well. That's important. But in this case specifically, given how easy it's spreading, it is not correlating just with washing your hands, guys. This is correlating with those little droplets that people are inhaling, and it is traveling a fair distance, more than that 2-3 feet that's being put out there. No. So your hand sanitizer, wash your hands. I describe in my book, I'm not making any of this up, this is just the way it is, but knowing how this is a thing, how bad it was at some point, I actually made the case of explaining how to make your own hand sanitizer, how to make this when the commercial one is sold out like it is right now. It's no crystal ball. It is stuff that has happened before, and my methodology of preparedness is if it happened before, it could happen again, right? So that is really all there is to it. If it has happened before, it is likely to happen again, and it has happened again. Pandemics do happen, forest fires do happen, volcano eruptions do happen, and economic cycles do happen as well, which we're going to be getting into that in a second. But you should have these things. For anyone, your older guy in a more rural place, you should be doing the exact same thing. If I was over 60 years old, and especially if I had some medical condition of some kind, I would be taking a lot more precautions. I would try to shelter in place, right? You know the definition, sheltering in place. You stay put. You use all that stockpile of stuff that you have, all that food that you have, and you stay there and you avoid contact with other people. That's the best thing by far that you could possibly do. Ironically, or maybe not ironically enough, because I've talked about this ad nauseum, it doesn't really matter where you are. If you're rural, that's fine. If you're in the city, it's just about closing your door and not opening and talking with people. You're just sheltering in place. You're just avoiding contact, and you're not going out there. These are all things that you have to keep in mind, and you have to buy the supplies if you don't have them already, which you should. But these are all things that when it reaches a certain point, and that is up to you, you have to make that decision yourself. You say, okay, from now on, I'm staying here until things calm down, or at least most people that are supposed to get sick do get sick, and it blows out on its own. You cannot shelter in place, well, at least most people cannot shelter in place for a year and a half. You can take a lot of precautions for a year and a half, and you can stay put for a couple months, if your job allows and such. But if you have the supplies for it, staying a couple months, see how things develop, that may not be a bad idea. If there's not a single case in your city, okay, you just go about your day, you wash your hands like you normally do, you avoid sneezing and coughing people like you normally do, and that's pretty much it. You're not overreacting, you're not paranoid, you're not none of these things. The supplies, the respirators, the face masks, the gloves. I have several boxes of these, but these you don't need these fancy ones. The standard ones, the latex gloves work just as well. Supplies, hygiene supplies like napkins and tissue paper and all of this stuff is essential. Ibuprofen, fever medicine. If you do end up getting sick, most likely for most people, you'll deal with it just fine. That is also part of this as well. Most people will survive this. Most people. Unfortunately, a lot of people, and maybe most people, as in over 50%, will get sick eventually. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So have these things so as to, if you get sick, try dealing it as best as you can, staying home. There's no point in going to a hospital if you can somewhat control the fever, control these things. Sure. If you do end up with a pneumonia, you will need that oxygen, you will need those meds, and you will need to go to a hospital. But if you are a younger person, fit, if you've been taking the precautions of boosting your immune system as much as you can, staying relaxed, working out, doing a little bit of exercising, eating your vitamin C, all of these things I've mentioned before, your chances are a lot better, all right? Schools in Italy already closed. Also, there's a very American thing of how people react when things go to hell, and that is, yes, a lot of people will overreact. Yes, a lot of people will blow this out of proportion. They will empty those shelves. They will buy every drop of water there is, every canned good. And unfortunately, if you don't have your preps already, you will be among those. You will be rushing and trying to stock up on everything. Sprays for disinfecting. You will have to disinfect a lot of your gear, a lot of the stuff you use when out and about. There's ways of improvising that as well. You use bleach. David Jones was explaining that bleach solutions are used by the military. They're one of the best ways of disinfecting surfaces and gear and that sort of stuff. So your bottle of bleach powder, so as to make more of it, or bottled bleach, that's all useful. Alcohol useful as well. Sold out. Across many parts of Europe, you will not find one of these. You will not find a bottle of hand sanitizer. They're going for like 12 bucks, 15 bucks, a small bottle of it. People are going nuts. But yeah, and then there's the economic aspect of this, which is going to be huge, because there's already talks about Coca-Cola doesn't have the supplies for Diet Coke. iPhones are not being made, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's pretty much everything that you're looking at has some product made in component made in China. It's all back order. People are not going to work. They're not working. They're not producing. The economy there's going to be a huge recession. For that, of course, you guys that have been with me for a while, my first book, The Modern Survival Manual, Surviving the Economic Collapse. It is quite fitting for what's happening right now. Right, so this is things that have been discussed before, an entire book dedicated to it. I have the links for my 2 books below. Right now it's on a 10% discount, so you can get it for 19 bucks in Amazon. Yeah, it's usually a little bit higher than that, so take advantage of that. And it is a book that has almost 500 positive reviews in Amazon, 450, something like that. So yeah, I can humbly say that it's quite good in terms of preparing for an economic recession, an economic crisis, or a full-blown economic collapse. Guys, that's the situation as it is right now. You have to be calm, stay calm, remain calm, and all that stuff, yes, but know how to filter through the bullshit, which I explain in Street Survival Skills as well. Knowing how to read the media, what the media is trying to feed you, and how it's trying to modify the social engineering aspect of all this, of how to influence your thoughts on the internet as well. Same old thing. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and it wasn't too long and you got some good information. Have an awesome day. See you in the next video.